Paris, chérie, mon beau Paris.
Hello everyone, and a very happy new year, happy 2008 from me, Sab Will, here in Paris. I hope you will have a very successful and wonderfully creative photographic year over the next 12 months. I hope that you'll visit my site, Paris Set Me Free, and read about the photographs, read the critiques, and maybe even send in a message or two telling me what you think. That would be great to hear from you. To start off the year, I'm going to talk about this photograph. It's a nice positive image. Not all of my images are so cheerful. Here's one, which is, although it was taken, I have to admit, in December last year, and I've called it Notre Kiss, because it was in fact taken, as you can see, in front of Notre Dame in Paris. It was totally unplanned, I promise you, and reminds me very much of the photograph, the famous photograph by Robert Doisneau, the famous kiss, where two people seem to be caught in action completely spontaneously. Later on, a few decades later, I think the couple themselves came along and said, hey, that's us, and you didn't have the right to take our photograph. Be that as it may, it's one of the most famous photographs in the world, and this one is along the same lines. On that question of whether you have the right to take photographs of people you can identify, I think you can just see the face of the guy. You can't see the girl, and I hope it's okay. I played around with it a little bit. Normally I don't. This time I did, because I thought I'd have some fun. Over the Christmas period, I was reading about various things you can do with photographs, and I generally don't play around with photographs, so I thought, okay, this time I'll try a couple of things. If you've read the text that I wrote to go with this photograph on my blog at parissetmefree.blogspot.com, you'll know that I set you a little quiz to try and guess how many changes I made to this photograph. And now I'd like to go through them and see if you were right. First of all, I cropped the image. There was too much sky. It was a very nice sky, pure blue, fading from, or rather darkening from a pale blue here up to darker, lovely rich dark blue at the top. But there was too much sky, so I left that, so I got rid of that. I also decided to play with the colours and the saturation a little bit. The image was taken on a cool winter day, and I can't say that the colours were very rich, so I decided to enrich them, to saturate them, and also to oversaturate them, in fact, and also playing with the contrast a little bit to make the image almost supernatural. I wouldn't say unnatural, because I've tried to keep it still resembling a photograph that you can believe was taken, but at the same time I wanted to give it almost a fairy tale aspect. Having just seen a film yesterday from Walt Disney called Once Upon a Time, at least in French it was called Il était une fois, which means once upon a time. I was in a kind of fairy tale mood, so I thought it would be nice to do something with this photograph which makes you feel that it's a little bit magical, because after all the moment is magical. This couple, I caught them completely unexpectedly, took 2 or 3 very fast shots without being seen, and scuttled away. Poor little voyeur that I am. And I don't think they were ever any of the wiser. And it's great, because everything comes together. And it really says Paris to you. You've got Notre Dame in the background. You've got this marvellous signpost coming out of their heads. Well, maybe they're embracing the signpost as well. and there are 4 panels on there, and each of them tells you that something about the place. There's Ile de la Cité, there's something about a hospital, I think, and it's all in French, of course, so it screams Paris at you, which is marvellous. Another change I made was slight darkening. Don't normally do this. Used to do this in the old days when I would play around in the darkroom, doing some dodging and burning, which basically means making certain areas darker and certain areas lighter. You can do the same thing in digital photography, and I did. Maybe you guessed I darkened the top of the frame a tiny bit, sort of doing the equivalent of burning in on this area here, and also did the same thing here on the bottom for effect. In the old days you were allowed to do this. You were allowed to create a kind of oval, dark oval, with leaving the middle bright, almost as an artificial frame within the photograph. These days it seems to be frowned upon, any sort of manipulations. People scream photoshopped at you, but that was an old traditional technique, so I tried to do it very, very subtly here. Darkened this corner here was already dark, so that was okay. This guy who's looking and has there's a line between him and the couple, which is marvellous. It's a very, very important element, to have someone in the photograph interacting with another element in the photograph, and we have it. We have this guy looking on, you know, maybe a bit with a little bit of a smile on his face, maybe a little bit enviously, who knows. His bag was a little bit too bright, so I darkened that as well. The last element I want to talk to you about is something which maybe you guessed, maybe you didn't, but something I very, very rarely do, and that's really play around with some of the things in the photograph which you couldn't really do in traditional photography. This bird used to be here. It was a lovely bird, beautiful wings outstretched, in a nice pose, but unfortunately it was just about to fly out of the edge of the shot here. So I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to start putting birds into shots where there wasn't one in the first place, because I think that's really cheating. But in this case I thought the bird was there. If I'd taken the shot about a third of a second earlier, it would have been in this position anyway. So I thought, okay, let's try a bit of manipulation. So I tried taking the bird from one side of the picture and putting it on the other side. I think the position is nice. Whether you think I've done it successfully or not is, in fact, I probably haven't. It's one of my first attempts to cut something out and put it across, plus having to replace this bit of sky with other bits of sky. So I'm absolutely a beginner in terms of photographic manipulation in the true Photoshop style. It wasn't Photoshop, by the way, it was PaintShop Pro, which does more or less the same thing. So that was my attempt. So there it is. I'd be interested in any comments you have. Please leave them on the blog, as I said. A cheerful image for the beginning of 2008. Hoping it'll be a great creative photographic year for you. I hope it will be for me as well. If you're ever in Paris, then do feel free to come on one of my photo tours or just meet up for a coffee. It would be a pleasure. That's it for today. See you again soon. Bye bye.
Depuis que je suis à Paris, le jour et la nuit, je suis gris. J'ai compris la douceur de vivre. Je suis fou de joie, je suis ivre. Depuis que je suis à Paris.